sharing with you in this video 10 ways to increase your productivity when creating what you want. And so a lot of these are not going to be what you think. They might confuse you. And I want you to consider as well that a lot of the things that I'm going to be sharing with you in this video, they might seem like they contradict each other, but I want you to be open to the idea that possibly it might seem like they're contradictory, but they can both still be simultaneously true at the same time. I would want you to just be open to that possibility. And then so with that being said, the first way to increase your productivity when creating what you want, I believe, is to have structure over mood, to have a consistent structure regardless of how you feel. Because the truth is that a lot of the times you're not going to feel like doing the thing that you decided to do. That's just the truth of the matter, is that your emotions are probably going to tell you not to do it. You're going to feel like you don't want to do it, or that maybe you shouldn't continue with whatever it is that you want to do. And so what we're trying to do here is not fight with ourselves and sort of combat this, but what we're doing is we're learning how to take that past resistance and belief of limitation and then use it to just follow a structure instead. Just follow through with the structure regardless of your fleeting mood. It might seem simple. It might seem maybe even a little bit too outlandish for some people on the other end as well. But nonetheless, though, I think that what we have to start to realize is that oftentimes motivation is a short-term thing that lasts very little time, whereas being a person that trusts themselves to follow through with the plan, even if they don't want to, that type of skill set, that type of beingness that you can bring into each moment is something that you're going to have with you for the rest of your life if you choose to value it and you choose to be consistent on it. And then so the second way to increase your productivity when creating what you want, which might seem contradictory, is to recharge your energy as well. Oftentimes, if you don't come fully recharged, fully connected to your spirit, fully connected to, your physical body being relaxed in a certain way, right? Coming into a state of just ease and relaxation, you're not going to be able to consistently follow through with any plan. You're not going to be able to put any work. Ironically, if you want to work very hard in your life, if you want to put in a lot of work, you have to come from a space of being recharged. And a lot of people don't want to admit this. They don't want to focus on this. And what happens is that they consistently repeat the same mistakes over and over and over. And then so the third way to increase your productivity when creating what you want is to also know when to ask for support. So a lot of people think that everything is just you being a one-man show or a one-woman show, right? And a lot of times that's just not the case. It's just not the case, because you have to know when it's time in life to say that, you know what, this is a multi-person project. This I need support on this situation. I need help on this situation. You need to drop your ego and look at how much work is it going to take to create what you want. What kind of support are you going to need to create what you want? Why do it by yourself? If you believe that you have to do it by yourself, what you're essentially doing is you're taking your independence to a level that is not honorable to the level of support systems that could be around you in your life. So know when it's time to maybe get a mentor, get a coach, invest in yourself in a certain way. Go look at more resources. Go maybe find a support, a support system, read a book, find a video, find a course, find any support system that you think is going to help you to become better and to increase your productivity. A lot of times, that's when you can take your work to a much higher level, is when you're able to just kind of ask for that help when necessary, whatever it is. So whether it's a multi-person project that you need to reach out to people, say like, I can't do this by myself, whether it's reaching out to a coach or whatever, again, the case might be, it's about knowing when it's time to drop your ego and just ask for that support. And then so the fourth way to increase your productivity when creating what you want as well is to focus on how you do things as well. It's not just what you do. I think that productivity is about focusing as well on the place that you're coming from while you're doing what you're doing. Because a lot of times we can just be focused on what action do I do. And it is true. I even talk about a lot in my videos that oftentimes it really doesn't matter how you feel. You can just simply sometimes do the thing that you need to do to get the result. And oftentimes you can get the result. It's very possible. You don't need to be in a specific vibration or a specific feeling necessarily. That's not what I'm saying here. But what I'm saying nonetheless, though, is that how you do something can be the biggest difference between if you're able to create what you want and not. So that's not me saying you have to feel a certain way. It's just the place that you're coming from again while you're doing it. It's something greater than even a feeling. It's something even more nuanced than a positive or negative feeling. It's that place of self-awareness that exists within you as you're doing what you're doing. And then so I believe that ultimately as well, that level of self-awareness can change your feeling over time, can sort of raise your level of energy over time to make you feel more connected and feel better in your life. But that's not how it starts. Oftentimes it just comes from a deep state of acceptance of just what is. And then that's really what it is. That deep state of acceptance means that you don't really resist anything that happens in your life. But then again, that creates that energy of non-resistance that people perceive because you have, again, no resistance to what's happening in the present moment. So when you take action from this space, I believe that everything is sort of infused with a deeper meaning in terms of how you're doing it, the place that you're coming from. It's not just results, although the result mindset is there. It's more about how are you doing it as well. So the fifth thing that I want to share with you as well in terms of how to increase your productivity is to focus on one thing at a time. So oftentimes I think that we can be very scattered in our attention. We can be having multiple things on our mind. We can be going from task to task. And I'm not saying that that's not a bad thing to do necessarily. Sometimes the multitasking is good. Sometimes even being a little bit more of a not focus on one thing sort of state can be good. However you want to describe that. Whatever the case might be, one path to consider at a certain time, not necessarily saying that you have to do this every single moment of your life. But sometimes what you can do is know when it's time to just focus on one thing at a time. Narrow everything else, out of your life, narrow down into that one thing, push everything else out, And then what happens is that when you push everything else out and you narrow into that one thing, you begin to start to build momentum and speed, and something that felt very slow at first, that feels like it's taking a long time, it goes by much faster, feels much faster, and it feels easier. And now you've effectively made it so that you feel easier while you're doing something. Like it feels easier, yet you've put in literally more work than other people in certain areas. You've put in more effort, yet it feels easier for you. So that's a state that you can get into. It's called a flow state when you have enough momentum. But at first it might not seem like that. So a good metaphor is sort of like if you've ever remembered, your first time learning to ride a bike. If you focus on the first time you've ever rode a bike, what you'll look is that, what you'll see in that moment, is that you feel a little bit of resistance. It feels uncomfortable. It feels weird. And then eventually, before you know it, you're riding a bike and there's momentum and it's just easy to even get speed and you're fast. And the thing is that when you're even flying a plane, for example, once you're in a state of momentum, you're in a state of momentum. You already have the speed. It's sort of easy to stay in that state. What becomes difficult is if you randomly want to change something too quickly. But if you allow yourself to put in that time, put in that effort, focus on one thing, let the momentum build, what you'll find is that your results become much more powerful. So the sixth way and the sixth thing that I want to share with you in this video in terms of the sixth way to increase your productivity when creating what you want is also know when it's time to multitask. Sometimes it's okay to jump from task to task, be more multitask oriented. Sometimes a lot of people fail at being able to multitask, have sort of this self-awareness where you can be aware of the entire environment and do what you have to do moment to moment, or maybe you're doing one thing for one moment, and yeah, you're technically doing one thing at a time per moment, but you're able to jump from one task to another task very quickly without letting it affect your energy. That's, I think, what the essence of multitasking is about. You're very good at narrowing your focus down into one thing at a time still, but again, you can switch from thing to thing, and internally yet that doesn't sort of affect you negatively. It doesn't make you feel flustered. See, people that feel flustered when they jump from one task to another task, they're not very good multitaskers. They're too focused, too narrow-minded. They can only focus on one thing at a time. They can't jump from that task to another task. That's a problem, I think. I think that if you want to be at your maximum level of productivity, you have to know moment to moment how to jump from one thing to another thing. You can't just be so set on your ways that you believe that every single day has to be the exact same thing. Yeah, we have structure. Yeah, we need to do the same thing consistently and follow that structure over our mood. But as well, you have to know how to be flexible, how to change in the moment and be a type of person that knows when it's time to change and jump from one thing to another thing and then still be grounded in the present moment while you're doing that. And then so the seventh way to increase your productivity when creating what you want is to know your why and your end goal. So keep that in mind every single day as you're taking action in your mind's eye. What are you doing and why are you doing it? Why are you even doing the things that you're doing every single day? Because oftentimes I think that we can forget the reason why we're doing things and we just get so caught up in just the result. And of course that's good to have that result in your mind, but also know why. Why are you doing it? So what's the reason you're doing it? There has to be a deeper reason. There has to be a deeper mission statement, so to speak, a deeper purpose behind why. Is it something that is just self-centered towards you? Is it just about your wants and your needs? Or are you able to have that enough self-awareness to see how it affects others as well, what you want? Because again, if you want to get what you want, you also have to align with what you want aligns with what other people want as well. You have to be a person of service. You have to align your desires with other people's desires. And you don't necessarily have to do this. I don't mean to use the word how, but the truth is that if you want to get the best result in the most respectable and honorable way, you have to understand that your actions have influence and effect over others. So when you know why, you just come from a place of more integrity, more respect, and again, you keep that end goal in mind as well. It's important to keep the result in mind as well. Not to say that keeping the result in the back of your mind is a bad thing, but it's just sort of have that awareness that it's not just about the result, and it's also about knowing why you're even doing it in the first place. So the eighth way to increase your productivity when creating what you want as well is to sort of ask yourself, well, what happens if you don't become a productive person? If you don't create the thing that you want to create? What would happen if you just stay stuck and do the same thing every single day, are never flexible to change into become the person that you want? Like, what would happen if you, let's just say you really want something in your life right now. I want you to imagine whatever that is. What do you actually want to create in your life the most important thing to you in your life right now? What would happen if you don't create that? What would happen if you don't become the person that you have always wanted to be, whatever you want to be right now in this present moment, whether you've always wanted to be it or whether you decided it recently? What will happen if the most important thing to you that you decided, when I ask you that question, what would happen if you don't become that? I think that we're oftentimes scared to consider this. We're scared to consider, the answer to this question. But the truth is that if you don't think about the answer to that question, that's essentially still the trajectory of your life anyway. So you may as well consider the question, because that's where you're going to go. So it's not something to shy away from, I don't think, personally. It's not something to be scared of, in my opinion, personally. I think it's okay to think about the trajectory of our life if we don't become who we want to be. Sit with that idea. Because if it's causing you pain, maybe it's not necessarily a good idea to go there. Yeah, sometimes it's okay to move through pain to create what you want. But if it's genuinely not aligning with what your heart wants, then maybe it's something to reconsider. You should never commit to something that causes you so much pain that you don't feel excited anymore about doing the thing that you want to do. And it's not about depending on motivation. It's about, even if you feel pain, are you excited to move through it? Or does it feel like you're miserable? If you feel like you're miserable, then really ultimately you need to question more, in my personal opinion, well, again, what's going to happen in your life if you don't create that most exciting thing for you? The alternative is to stay in a state of doing something that you don't prefer, that you don't actually want. And that's a huge problem, right? That's a very, very big problem. That's a big problem because there's some belief in the mind at that moment that you don't have a permission slip to do what you actually want to do. You believe that you're in a state of doing something that you believe that you have to do. And if you believe that you have to do it, then what that's going to do is put you in a space where you're not fulfilled, you're not happy, you're not enjoying the process, you're stuck in your mind essentially doing things that you think are necessary that you can really choose not to do in your life if you take a little bit more ownership, a little bit more accountability, and have just a little bit more self-awareness, which is the ninth way to increase your productivity, is to have more self-awareness. It's to have more self-awareness, while you're doing something. Now, when I talk about the self, when I talk about self-awareness, what self am I talking about? I'm not talking about your little tiny ego and your thoughts and your emotions. And when I say tiny, I'm not saying that your thoughts and your emotions are not significant. What I'm saying is that the self is greater than just your ego structure. It's not just your thoughts and your emotions and even your body and your mind or whatever collection of those things you want to see yourself as. I'm talking about a deeper self, and to be aware of that while you do things in your day-to-day life. Because if you have self-awareness while you're doing something in your day-to-day life, if you're focused on that deeper I, so there's I am whatever you want to be, right? It's like I am this, I am that. Of course, affirm what you prefer to be in your life. That's all good, right? I am this, I am that. But then there's the I before the I am. There's the sense of you exist prior to even you saying anything of I am this or I am that. Regardless of which identity you become in your life, you are awareness prior to that at any single moment. And I believe that that's the true essence of productivity, is to infuse every single action with that self-awareness. Because really, if you're doing action while identified with the action, I think that actually creates a limitation on how you do things. Like, I think your life force, if you believe energy is real, if you think life force energy is real, right? Whatever you want to see it as, I believe that your life force is going to go down. Your energy levels will go down because that identification creates more anger, more attachment, more resistance. When you're attached to the form of things that are happening, you don't have that ability to let go and to take action from a free place, because all you're doing is you just care about the result and not even how you feel. And that's an issue with your values. Not necessarily you, but in that moment, that would be a person that, in my opinion, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with valuing something in life, but if it's causing you pain and misery, maybe it's not a good thing to value. Maybe you should reconsider what your values are if it's causing you pain and sadness and misery and you're not happy with your creations moment to moment. So self-awareness is not really about analyzing your history or your pain or anything like that. It's just about beingness while you're doing, valuing being while doing, valuing that state of connection to who you are while you do things. And so the 10th way to increase your productivity when creating what you want is to act without thinking. And that might sound crazy. You might be thinking, like, why would you ever act without thinking? That's crazy. I'm not saying to not have a structure. I'm not saying to not have a plan. I'm not saying to not outline things and have boundaries and rules and to not use your mind. I would never invite you to not use your mind. What I'm saying is to not be attached to the mind as a tool and to use the mind as a tool properly. Because oftentimes when you get entangled with your own mind, that's what causes literally self-inflicting pain on yourself, that you're attacking yourself. You know what I mean? It's like your mind is literally attacking yourself. And the reason that this is happening is because you're unwilling, not you necessarily, but the person can be unwilling to just take action without thinking. You don't always have to think while you're taking action. Thinking can take its time, take its place at the right time, at the right moment. Think about the plan, use your mind, but don't attach to it and be so caught up in the plan and your mind and what you think is perfect. Then now you're just in a state of perfectionism and everything has to be perfect and you're not executing. Execution is about stop waiting for things to be perfect and just execute anyway. Even if it's not perfect, even if it's not exactly what you thought it should be, even if there's sort of like you believe there's a problem and it's not exactly how you thought it was going to look. It's like, just do it anyway. Execute anyway. You'll find that you can still produce a lot more than you might believe in the beginning if you give yourself permission to actually do this. So act without thinking at all. And what you'll find is that that's true wisdom as well. Wisdom is about realizing that action in of itself, being in a state of movement, doesn't require thought. It doesn't require any thought. You can just create by being. Beingness will allow you to create naturally when you let beingness move through your doing. So act without thinking, and what you'll find is that all the thinking happens naturally. Any plan you need to think of, you might think like, oh, well, how am I going to structure my life? And it's like, that will all happen naturally when you give yourself permission to not be so attached to the mind. You'll figure out your planning. The right ideas will come to you at the right time. And when you don't need those ideas anymore, you'll let them go and you'll actually execute on them immediately. You won't just be caught up in a state of thinking and waiting for things to be perfect. Oftentimes thinking doesn't take that long. It's like, okay, I think that this makes sense and I should do this. It's like, go, get right into it. Take action. What is that? Where is that gap between you thought of a plan and then instantly acting upon it? Why is that gap so large for most people? I think that gap is so large for most people because they're not the type of person to just be an executor, to be an instant executor. And it's not about, when you say executor, there's stigma to that word and it sounds like, yeah, work hard and be in a state of resistance. Like, not necessarily. Not necessarily. Yeah, of course, take action regardless of your mood. But taking action regardless of your mood, surprisingly enough, will increase your mood. You might think like, oh, well, now he's just saying to be in a state of resistance and, he's attached to his ego and he just believes that working hard is the answer. Not necessarily. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that when you can act regardless of your mood, you're training yourself to have a better mood. You're training yourself to be better, and oftentimes acting without thinking is the path to do that and what helps you to be who it is that you want to be. And you just have to give yourself permission to actually do so.